Waldy and Bendy.
Hello, art lovers. It's Valdemar here, and this is a special interview edition of Waldy and Bendy's Adventures in Art, the podcast they could not stop. So in this special edition, I'm going to be talking to someone who's probably the most famous artist in the world. He's certainly up there, and his work has changed the story of art fundamentally. He's been enormously influential. He's always fun to talk to, and is, of course, Damien Hirst. Now, Damien recently completed a crystal grotto for one of the richest people in Britain, a chap called Mark Getty, and he has a stately home called Wormsley Park where the grotto is. And I had the great pleasure of writing a catalogue essay about it. And although Damien is in Las Vegas at the moment, of all places, I managed to get him on the line and I spoke to him about the grotto and all sorts of other things.
The interview.
Thanks, Damien. So it's really nice to talk to you. It's been a while, actually. So I've got a couple of things to ask you about. And I know that you're in Las Vegas, where
Yeah.
I'm sure you're going to see all the museums and looking into the Renaissance art that they've got there. Tons and tons of Renaissance art in Vegas that I know interests you. So that'll be good to hear about. I'm going to start, right? I'm going to break the ice with you, Damien. I've never done this with you before. I'm going to do it now. I'm going to ask you 5 quick fire questions, okay? So no faffing about, straight answers, right?
Yeah.
Here we go. Who's your favourite artist?
Goya.
Goya. Yeah, good choice. What's your favourite gallery or museum?
The old Saatchi Gallery on Boundary Road.
Oh, that's a great answer. By the way, I met him the other day again. I haven't seen him for ages, and we
I
talked
see him
about stuff.
from time to time. I love Saatchi.
Yeah, talked about you actually. No, it was really good to see him, and that gallery was the best, wasn't it? It really changed everything. Yeah, anyway, carry on. What's the best artwork you've ever made?
1,000 Years.
Which one is that?
The one with the cow's head and the fly piece. The fly piece, with
Oh yeah, the fly piece. Yeah, of course. I mean, that was the most impactful, wasn't it?
Yeah, I just think it was, like a Frankenstein moment for me. I thought, what have I made? And it was like I was a kind of viewer of my own work in a big way with it.
Yeah. And it's like the biggest of your statements about your biggest subject, which is sort of death and mortality. And
Yeah, it was that one that Lucian Freud said to me, my dear, I think you started with the final act. And I kind of went, that was what made me think about it, and then realize, yeah, maybe that was like the most major piece.
Yeah, that's a
Still,
long time ago now. So you've got a long way to go to
not really. Maybe I'm going backwards.
Yeah. Well, you can tell me about that in a minute, right? Carry on with this. So as far as art is concerned, who's the most influential person you ever met?
Person or artist? Person, I would say Joe Haig, who's my manager at the minute.
I don't know anything about him. Who's he? Surely that you've met people before that, artists or whatever.
Well, when you said influential, I mean, I think
Yeah.
it's like influential to me, influential in the art world. I mean, he's Richter's manager. He manages the Bacon Estate. He manages Peter Doig. Excuse me, sorry. He's very quiet, lives in the shadows, or tries to.
Yeah.
But just the way he looks at the world is similar to the way that I look at the world, but it's much more than I do. So he even gives me a run for my money.
Yeah.
But then the most influential artist, I would probably say someone like Bruce Nauman.
Oh, that's a surprise. Yeah. I mean, I can see that. There's a sort of anarchistic mood to his work. You can never quite ever know it fully, can you?
No, and also he picks up sort of all the materials, he will paint, he will make sculpture, and it's mainly sculpture, but neons, all of that sort of stuff. He's like, he's kind of out in the world, looking at the world for his raw materials. A bit like, you could say Andy Goldsworthy. I watched that Rivers and Streams recently, which was a mind documentary.
Oh, I love Andy Goldsworthy. I wouldn't have thought he'd be up your street. Because he's quite gentle, isn't he?
No, but when you watch it, you just go, this is sort of fundamentally the whole fucking thing. It's like, there is nothing else. And it's like, if you're doing it that pure on that level, that thing, it's like, and also it's the antithesis of me, really, because it's like, there's not a hint of monetization.
We'll come to the monetization in a minute, I think. Andy
Yeah.
Goldsworth, that's a surprise for me to hear you say that, but I love his work as well. Did you ever see that film I made with him where we go out into this stream and build a perfect circle out of bits of wood?
No, I haven't seen it. I
Oh,
should
it's
look at it.
great. It's great.
Yeah, I only recently watched that one, and I watched another one that wasn't as good, but I'll watch it. What's it called, your one?
Yeah, I don't know what it's called, but it's me and Andy Goldsworthy running around build. I'll find it for you. I'll try and get it to send it to you. But it's a
Yeah,
lovely little film. It's ever so short, so you can
yeah,
watch it. You're in Vegas at the moment, are you still? So you can watch it in between bouts on the one-armed bandits. It won't take you long.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, last question. What's your favorite Christmas song?
Oh, we have Christmas song. Oh, Merry Christmas by Slade.
Merry Christmas. And here it is. Yeah, good. I thought you were going to say the Pogues, fabulous, fairy tale of New York.
Yeah, I mean that's brilliant as well. But
Shane McGowan.
Slade, smashing it, aren't they?
Yeah, Slade. Yeah, from the guts. All right, so that's the quick fire round. Now let's get down to some serious stuff. So, the reason I wanted to talk to you is you asked me to write something about something you've made, which is this fabulous grotto, and it's a grotto that you've made in the house of one of the Getty family,
Yeah,
and it's a fantastic thing. So describe it to us a little bit. I mean, all I could remember about it in detail is that it's like 150 tons of amethyst or whatever went into it. I mean, it's a
yeah.
fantastic, interesting space. So what's the story of that?
Well, obviously, the client's a bit eclectic, so he was asking me for something, kind of special. And then I've got this house in Chalford Place, which is my studio that I kind of worked on over like, 4.5 to 6 years. I'm still working on it actually. And in that I made a bedroom and I covered the walls in amethyst. And then so I thought, it'd be amazing to do like a cathedral or a grotto. So I was sort of swinging around with all these ideas and then, through talking about it, I kind of came up with the idea of doing a grotto sort of starting, loosely based on that. And then so that was the initial idea was to, kind of I mean, really, it's just I mean, there's the old, wonder cameras, aren't there? And then there's Kurt Schwitter's Mersbau. So I was just sort of, I remember being when I was at Goldsmiths, it was really productive and so much art. We were devouring tons of it through Richard Wentworth and Michael Craig Martin. And Edward Allington came in and did a talk one day, and he went and he had these big giant shells that were in the middle of the room with like plastics, creatures, spiders, or plastic toys spilling out of them and into the floor. And he said, what I was trying to do was create this idea that there was this thing in the middle of the room which was like neither on the wall nor the floor, because, everyone tells you that paintings go on the wall and sculptures go on the floor. And I wanted this thing that was neither, and it was in the middle, and it just sort of like it was spilling out these creatures. So I put the structure in between the spilling out bit. And then you just thought, and I just was thinking about all-encompassing art and how you get that, how you play with those things. And I love that idea of reversing or even completely changing that, art should do anything. I mean, I was always into breaking boundaries, and I didn't really care. I was like into breaking rules, and I didn't really care. I wanted to change the world, but I had no idea what into it. I just wanted change. And so it sort of came out of that. And all those sort of things like a ghetto or a Wunderkammer or an installation by Schwitters, they all have that kind of, you know, I mean, there's a wow thing as well. Like when you walk into a museum, if you look at like the Natural History Museum has it a lot more than a commercial gallery. Like you walk into a commercial gallery and occasionally you go, wow, what's that? How's that work? What is that? You occasionally do that, but not all the time. But in a museum like the Natural History Museum, you're kind of always doing that, or a science museum, with all the experiments and, your tornado in a jar or whatever. So I always wanted art that did that.
Mm. So what you've done is you've built this, as it were, fake cave or a man-made cave, and it's just
Yeah,
after the library because Mr. Getty's one of the world's greatest collectors of books as well, isn't he?
yeah,
He's got this fantastic library with beautiful like first edition folios of Shakespeare, and so you go
yeah,
through the library and then you go into your space, which is this crazy space. It's, as you said, 150 tons, whatever it is, of amethyst. It's completely kind of surrounding you and taking you into this other world, which sort of feels underground but isn't, because you've also got stained glass in there and your trademark butterflies. So it's absolutely a kind of space that transports you away from the ordinary world into this world of mystery and sort of Harry Potter magic and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the room itself is a kind of odd shaped room. It's quite a complicated room. And then, I know the library because I've been up there. I mean, he's, bought work from me before, just individual pieces, and we've cited them. So I've visited quite a few times. And then he showed me that room and said, "Is there anything you can do with this room? If you've got any ideas, I want to kind of make it special." And, because it's right next to the library, he's got the Peeps letters in there and all of that stuff as well, and a lot of really amazing first edition books by like Picasso and Matisse and those kind of things that are like really amazing, like with cut leather and so it was quite so I thought you need to be doing something really great, and then I thought, well, a bit like with my house, I thought what I should do is make it into a kind of whole environment or installation or a room of its own. It should be its own thing. And then the first idea was, I'll cover the walls with amethyst, and then I just went through the whole room bit by bit. And then, I mean, I'm still sort of working on it in my head. I mean, I was thinking about those. I was going to maybe send Mark some grotto furniture, when you get those big shelves, chairs that were very popular in grottos.
Yeah, like The Prisoner, that film series, the TV series, The Prisoner, where you
Oh,
sit in
did
fun
it?
chairs. Yeah.
There you go. Look, it's almost contemporary then as well.
Yeah, yeah. So what's going to happen to it? I mean, obviously at the moment it's in the private ownership of Mr. Getty and him and his books. But are other people going to be able to go and see it? Can you make an appointment? How are you going to get in there and to see it?
I mean, I think he's very open to that sort of stuff. I mean, I wouldn't have liked to do it with somebody who, it would be put in their house never to see the light of day and no one's allowed in. But, he puts on the opera at his house every year. He builds that
Yeah.
thing and he invites the public and they all come over. And he said, it'll be open during that period for
Okay,
people
great. Yeah.
to look at. And I think by appointment as well. I mean, we haven't worked that out yet, but I'm sure if somebody wrote him a, nice letter and said they wanted to go and have a look at it, he'd, let people go down.
Yeah. Well, it was
Um,
an absolute thrill to go and see it, and I enjoyed writing about it as well because I love grottos. They're a bigger thing than you and me. They've been around for ages, and they tie
yeah,
us in, I think, with just cave art right back to the very beginning of
yeah,
humanity. Going down underground and making things on the walls. There's a just a power to the grotto that I love, and your version of
yeah,
it is very exciting. Yeah. So the other
yeah,
thing I want to talk to you about is precious stones, bling. Right? You've talked about this amethyst. Now,
yeah,
your work as one of the things I love about it, and I think we share this taste for the sort of uselessness of precious stones. I mean, there's nothing you could do with them except look at them and think, wow, aren't they wonderful? And yet there's something absolutely stunning about that. I mean, I love gold, I love, all jewelry, all bling. And you've got a good relationship with it, I think. One that you've got an arty relationship that I respect and like. I mean, obviously your most notorious work in that field is the big skull you made, whatever it was, 50 million quid's worth of diamonds on it or something. So there's that. But also the exhibition you put on in Venice, the treasures from the wreck of the unbelievable, that was a kind of celebration of precious materials. So what are we talking about here? What is it about, emeralds and jewels and diamonds and amethyst? What are we talking about from your point of view?
um, I mean, it's a big one that, but I mean, from my point of view, I guess there's a few things in there. I mean, the one of the big things is belief, but maybe we can talk about that later because that sort of arrives at the end of of other conversations, which are about um, the sacred or something like that. And it's like it's no accident that churches and religious temples of all kinds have used artists and of precious materials to kind of make their house better than your house or seem better than your house or look better than your house or to draw your breath or whatever and you kind of I mean, I have a therapist actually. I spoke to my therapist recently about sort of some frustrations I sometimes get in my studio around art, which is like, it's like if I was to go up to a guy in the street and I saw him, plastering a wall and I thought he's doing it really well and it looks amazing. or painting a wall. And then I went to him. I said, "Look, can you come into my studio and just paint me that canvas, and I'll pay you, whatever you want, 500 quid or a grand." He'd go, "I don't do art. I can't do that. I don't do art, mate. I paint walls." And it's this idea that it's a different thing. And then as an artist, I don't like that. But then, so when I was talking to my therapist about it, she said, you have to be aware of what we believe culturally about what is sacred, because what you're talking about is the sacred. She says, you've probably got a lot of people who work for you who wouldn't go and work for a company that moved pianos because they believe they're dealing with the sacred. And she says, she said to you, when you're making a painting, it doesn't become a sacred object maybe until you sign it. Whereas for the people who work for you, it's a sacred object as soon as they start. And it's not even that. It's like the canvas comes in blank and it's a sacred blank canvas. And the rubber gloves they put on to paint it are sacred rubber gloves. And she said, you probably noticed it with your framers. If you get a frame made for your drawing by your kid, it's £500. Whereas if it's a Picasso, it's £20,000 or £10,000 because it's like everybody jumps on the sacred train. And then in terms of precious materials, she said everybody can kind of go, look, this was made by Titian or Tiepolo, and it's a painting, and it's oil on canvas, and it probably cost him £200 to make if you mentally take it apart in your head. And he's made this magical object with it, a sacred object. And then when you go to something where you go, well, this is a gold object, like the gold toilet.
Catalan, Maurizio Catalan, yeah.
Maurizio Catalan's gold toilet. He goes, when you do that, he said, people just automatically go, well, how do you justify that? It's like, it's 8 million in gold. How can you sell it for 10? Where's the other 2 million? There should be, it's only 8 million in gold. How can you charge 2 million for, what's that other 2 million for?
And what's the answer?
Well, there is no answer. And that's what I used to believe that that's what it comes to belief. I used to believe that art was great art revealed the truth. Whereas now I think that art's a search for truth and there is no truth. And I don't believe there is any truth, but it still can't help it and it still exists and we still have to search for truth, but I don't believe there is any. And I believe that it's about the urge for it that's the thing. And there's something generous about art. But we all need it, and everyone, and like you said, back to the cave paintings, it's like, you can't put value on the cave paintings, but anybody who can do a kind of magical thing with a handprint and some soot and a stick and some animal's blood, in candlelight or in, a firelight, is somebody considered very precious and special, and they're outside of the normal, and culturally, we need that, and we've needed that for a long time. But it's
From the
very
beginning,
difficult
basically.
sell a material, to sell something based on the fact that it's made of precious materials. I mean, I think what they did on the Catalan toilet, which sold recently, which is very odd to overcome the problem, is I think they went, this piece contains £10 million worth of gold at the current value today. So let's start the bidding at 10. But they would have, they'd have had to start the bidding at 2. Because really the precious materials are irrelevant in art because culturally we don't care about that. What we care about is Saturn devouring his children by Goya, made out of, made for 200 quid.
Mm. But on the other hand, if you melted down the Maurizio Catalan, like the one they stole from Blenheim, there was like a version that existed
Yeah.
that they stole from Blenheim. You get your 10 million quid just in the solid gold, right? So that's the point, isn't it?
Yeah, that is the point. But without understanding that, you don't buy into it. Whereas you can pay 150 million for a painting, which you can't melt down into anything, and you can buy into that also. So that's sort of where the cultural bit ends, is in the painting, and then we're suspicious of the toilet unless we can understand that it's 10 million.
Hmm. So the price of it adds the value, as it were, the social and the historic and the receptive value. That's what people judge it by. Is that what you mean?
No, I don't. I think they're not connected. I think it gets in the way. I think the fact that it's made out of gold gets in the way of its value because it's
Yeah.
like I think it's not.
Because that piece of, I think, what was it about? It was a sarcastic piece. Because Catalan's always sarcastic.
Yeah,
The fact that he
exactly.
called it America right? A
Yeah,
gold toilet called America is a comment on America, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah. And he had to make it in gold, otherwise you lose that point about this kind of extremely expensive, precious stuff being a sort of disposable idea like American culture. I guess that was the
Yeah, I mean, I'm 100% into it, but more even. But it's the problem is that the precious materials get in the way. You can sell a banana taped to a wall for 200 grand, no problem.
hmm.
It's like nobody will look at that banana and go, but bananas are only 50p. No one's going to do that. And they're
Are
throwing a
you
tech
pro-Catalan or anti-Catalan?
pro. I love
Okay.
Catalan.
Yeah.
And I love Catalan, but I'm pro art, but it's like to be, I mean, because I make art, it's a different thing to kind of valuing it or evaluating it and valuing it. But, when you look at Catalan, you go that, it's like, I mean, it's easy for me I mean, the banana I think was sold for like 100 grand, and then you could buy one on the secondary market for 200 grand, and then it sold for what, 6 million or something.
Something like that, yes. And
But then in his market, there's not a lot of difference between an old banana and a solid gold toilet. And what I'm saying is culturally, we don't buy into the fucking materials. We're just not interested. We just go, no, it's like, because that means that, and I think it's connected to the fact that anyone can do it. It means anyone can, that means if it's about the precious materials, that means I can get my own gold and I can make a toilet and it's going to be worth 20 million or 12 million. It's going to be worth more than the sum of its parts, which is alchemy. So
mm,
we're basically then saying everyone's an alchemist. Everyone can be an alchemist, but nobody likes that. They don't want it. So they go no to it and they resist it and they just say, no, I'd rather have the banana on the wall. And there'll be a time that the banana on the wall will sell for more than the gold toilet.
yeah.
And there should be a time that the gold toilet can sell less for the gold in it.
Except that gold is lovely stuff, and it's not
Yeah,
just
it
our
is lovely
civilization
stuff.
that
Yeah, I
thinks
mean, it's
that. Everybody's
unbelievable.
thought it. Mm,
I mean, it's unbelievable stuff. I mean, it is unbelievable stuff.
mm.
It has a sort of, I know what it is. It's like culturally we believe in the sacred, and the sacred has no definable value. It's a moving value. The gold is a fixed value, and it interferes with the sacred. So you find it very hard to go, this is sacred, when you go, but the gold is worth X, no matter how much it is. Even if you say it's 200 millions worth of gold, you go, but to me, it's worth more than that because it's a sacred object. You can't connect the money. You shouldn't be able to connect the money to the object.
Yeah, but gold is see, in a way it's a bad example because historically everybody has loved gold. The Aztecs used to call it the sweat of the gods, didn't they, and all that.
Yeah,
It's always had that quality of being somehow extra sacred, something special, something that can change things, even though it's basically just a lump of metal. Culturally and historically, it has this presence. Anyway, listen, that was what you said. There was all really interesting. I just want to move on to one other point here, Damien. Right, so I mean, I think you're probably the best known artist in the world, or at least you're up there, right? So you're one of them. But looking through your biographies and that, I mean, as far as I can tell, right, you haven't got an MBE or a CBE, have you? Any of that stuff? You don't have
no,
a knighthood, do you?
no.
Um, you
I got
haven't
off.
you haven't represented. You're not a member of the Royal Academy, and you haven't represented Britain at the Venice Biennale officially. So,
Yeah.
were these things ever offered to you, or have you always just been looked down on and no one's bothered to give you anything, or you don't like gongs, or what? What's the answer to that?
Well, a few things really. Yeah, I mean, I have been offered, Jacob Rothschild phoned me up and uh, offered me the CBE, and then asked me, I said no, and then he asked me if it was a knighthood, would I accept? And I said no. And then, yeah, ARA, when Tim Marlow went there, who I love and respect, he was trying to get me to join, but, I mean, it's just, you just think, where were you when I needed you? It's like, I don't really buy into that stuff. I mean, I accepted the Turner Prize, and I remember that was Jay was saying to me, look, we'll be able to, you know, make a lot more impact in America if you've got the Turner Prize. So, and I went, oh, okay, but I don't believe that now. But I don't like, I remember the Turner Prize was horrible, really, because I got nominated twice, I remember having a cigarette outside with Grenville Davey, and when he was going to win it, and he was like, "Oh God, this is a nightmare." And, artists sort of fall out with each other over it. It's hard to have your friend when everyone's coming up to you saying, "Good luck, hope you win it." Like, I think Angela Bullock was there with it at one point. We were talking
Mhm.
about. She was saying, "Oh, it's a nightmare."
It was the great days of the Turner Prize, though. That's when it really had an impact.
Yeah.
One of the things I'll go to my grave saying about you is that basically you were one of the people that changed the story of art in certainly in Britain, but even wider than that. Because when I started out as an art critic, contemporary art was really down the list of things people were interested in. So you put a sign outside a gallery saying this is a contemporary art show. People queued up the other way to leave it. It had no real value, it had no impact. And then, you came along, Saatchi came along with his brilliant gallery in Boundary Road. And, there's a few wonderful things that happened. There was that, Rachel White-Reed and the beautiful house. Things happened, and suddenly art moved from page 89 in the paper to the front page. And, you were a big part of that. So people people have forgotten that. That people can be snide about you, but they've forgotten that without you, there would be no Tate Modern, and the relationship of the British public to contemporary art would be very different because you kind of punctured something there. But I guess you never set out to do that. It just sort of happened, didn't it?
I think I did set out to do it, but more, it was a mixture of fear and, excitement. I mean, I'd seen the Sex Pistols and I was into that one, I was 12 in 77 and, I saw them get banned on the radio and I was like, shit, man, I liked the Beatles before that, which was my dad's music, and I still love the Beatles, but I remember thinking, you can change the world. It's like these guys are changing the world and changing the way things are. And yeah, I mean, I remember also seeing Carl Andre's bricks at the Tate being ridiculed in the newspaper, and some cartoons being made of it, and people going, now bricks are art. And then I remember I was thinking, I've got to compete with that. When my art's got to be able to survive in the newspaper when it's a big picture of someone else and a tiny picture of my artwork. So I was thinking, we've got to make the artworks look great at this big. And then I remember in the Serpentine, there was a guy from the Daily Star came in with a bag of chips and stood in front of my fish peeps and said, now fish and chips are art. And I remember thinking, yeah, I made it to survive that and to live in this world as well as the other world. But I wanted it to live in all worlds. But I just thought the only problem with that was that art becomes you know, popular with the people. Cab drivers go, "Here, mate, did you do that fish and chip piece?" I'd
Mm,
get that, and you think that starts a debate and a conversation, and it doesn't matter that it's not highbrow.
mm. But so if you started out to change the world, what did you want to change it into? What was it you were after?
I sort of said that at the beginning that I've always wanted to change the world, but never really cared what into, which is maybe not such a good thing. I mean, I've got that show on at Newport Street, my museum at the minute with Shepard Fairey and Space Invader, and Shepard's very clear. He wants to make a better world and he wants to, make these changes and less cars and save, all these kind of really great save the forests and all these kind of things that are really great, and good for the world, good for our kids, good for the future. But I was like, so madly into punk and changing things. I never really sort of dwelled on what into. I just love change.
Mm. So, do you regret anything at all then? I mean, you've done so many things, some of which have rubbed people up the wrong way and annoyed a lot of people. What would you have done differently then with your new wise position as a slightly older artist?
I mean, I don't really regret anything. I mean, I try not to regret things. I mean, I kind of look at it and you kind of, a lot, there's so much more that I kind of doubted at the time that I'm kind of sure of now. I mean, there was, I had one show at Gagosian called No Sense of Absolute Corruption, where I kind of had rotating spin paintings. I made him spin and I had a sliced up cow. And that was the first time I showed the floating beach ball. And I kind of looked at that and I thought one day, oh my God, I should have had Bad Muzak playing and like a fun fair, but something like that. And I didn't, so it was silent. And so something like that, I kind of go, I just missed that sort of finishing touch of something, but I don't regret the moves and the things that I've done and the changes. And, I mean, it's just an exciting journey and an exciting line. And it's like, it incorporates all the mistakes. All my favorite artists made mistakes and wrong footings and bad turns, and but they eventually got where they were going. So I think it's not, to me, the excitement about art is it's the map of a person's life. And, my history of my art is a map of my life. So it kind of does what it's supposed to do, or what I think art's supposed to do.
Hmm. So, what's the future then? What have you got planned for us once your grotto's opened up and everybody can go and see that? I mean, you haven't got a dealer at the moment, is that right? You haven't got a specific gallery you're kind of
I mean,
working at?
I'm still working with Larry and Jay, but I'm not really sure how that stuff works anymore. It doesn't make sense to me really. But
So that's Gagosian and the White Cube Gallery, but you're sort of
yeah,
independent of them or what? I mean, I don't know. I don't actually understand how you set your career up now. You seem to be like a kind of loose atom doing things that you fancy.
yeah. Well, there's always that saying, isn't there, that the first mouse, second mouse gets the cheese, or the third mouse, or the fourth mouse. So I've always been sort of wary of kind of going into and changing things without really knowing how it's going to change or what's in there. I mean, the galleries have a function and it's a function. It might not be the perfect function. I mean, a lot of my ideas are Victorian, as like a lot of the formaldehyde is a Victorian thing. The butterflies under glass is a Victorian idea. They used to make tea trays, and I think really the gallery system is a Victorian idea. I mean, I think it was set up, with a salon, and they've taken away the curtains, where they open the curtains to show you the painting. But it's a game, and it's like they're only estate agents, and a lot of estate agents think they own everything because they've got the keys to the house. But I think it's changing. I mean, as an example, for the first time ever for me, I think in the history of art, maybe an artist has made more money on prints than on paintings. And I've made way more money on prints than paintings, just suddenly, like overnight, working with Henny. And it's like, it's a huge difference that. But I think it coincides with the fact that you never could have a reproduction of a painting that was as good as the painting, whereas now with printing quality you can. So images can be better than paintings. You can see more in an image of a painting than you can in a painting. And I don't know what that means yet, but it means it's huge and it means a lot. And it's more democratic, so it means that lots of people, from the very beginning, I used to think if I was given the option of the Mona Lisa or the merchandising rights, what would I choose? And I kind of always wanted both, and I kind of can't let go of the painting, and I can't entirely get hold of the merchandising rights. But that's kind of where I am, looking at it and just thinking, what does it mean if you make this much money in paints? Jay Jopling, my art dealer, said to me recently, if are you going to stop making paintings if you're making more money on prints? And I said, no, but I might stop selling them. So I'm kind of there.
Well, you're in a pretty unique position, really, because the one thing that no one can argue about is that you've kind of taken control of your life in ways that most artists don't get a chance to do. You're making money kind of your way. You're doing things your way. So, that's another of your many achievements. So it's been really nice talking to you. You're in Vegas at the moment, is that right? Are you playing the
Yeah.
slot machines? What are you
Actually,
doing?
I've got a little studio out here, and I've been making some paintings. I'm working on those paintings I started in London called the Jacaranda paintings.
Oh,
The blue blossom flowers.
yeah,
When I did
no,
that in
yeah,
Mexico, City, I put the diamond skull in a room which was all glass, and so you could see outside. And then I hung blossom paintings, my cherry blossoms, on the windows, and then outside, all the jacaranda blossoms were flowering. So when I saw them, I thought I'm going to do a series of jacaranda paintings.
right.
So
What the
work.
hell are you doing in Vegas with a studio? I mean, is it your new environment that suits you? What, I mean, it's
I mean, I've always loved Vegas. I mean, a lot of people, I mean, the whole world's sort of turning American, for good and for bad in lots of ways. Always has been. It's like I remember thinking when I smoked, I remember thinking, why can you not get Marlboro? Well, why can you not get Silk Cut in America, yet you can get Marlboro Lights in London? And it's like, McDonald's, I can get that in London, but I can't get the English things over here. Why is that? And and then when you think about it, I'll stop to think about it. I realize that Las Vegas is probably the only real part of America, and it's the rest of it that's fake. I'm enjoying
well,
that.
And on that deep thought, I think I'm going to leave you to it. And it's really nice talking to you, Damien. Take care, and I look forward to seeing all the other things and the book coming out about the grotto. And we'll try and keep up with what you're doing. But it's nice to talk to you, and some interesting things came up there. Thanks.
All right, man. Bye.
So, Bendy, there's Damien in Las Vegas, of all places, and me talking to him. I thought he was really... I mean, I always like talking to him. He just talks about art in a way that I find really interesting and kind of encouraging. He's never pretentious. He just says stuff. And whatever else you think about him, he's an inventive thinker, isn't he?
Yeah, great interview. A big scoop. Well done. I'm a Damien Hirst fan, not because necessarily I like all his stuff, far from it, but I just like his spirit, the way he attacks it. We art historians are as guilty as this as anyone. We tend to present artists as interested in deep, meaningful theological things or theoretical things, and a lot of the time, just like all the rest of us, they just had to put food on the table and make money. And I think Damien is refreshingly honest in the fact that he's often thinking about what's going to make him the most money. But at the same time, he does it with a mindset of being determined, as he said, to break the rules. Mm. And I think there's few greater callings for artists. Art is always evolving and moving on. For someone to want to break the rules and to be successful at the same time and make as much money as he has is extraordinary. Although I slightly worry, that he's ended up in Vegas. I'm very down on gambling. I hope he's not pulling the one-armed bandits too much.
No, I don't think he is. He's doing a bit of it. But the stuff about the sacred, I thought of you as he was speaking, because it's something you've been banging on about recently in our podcast. So, things about Gothic cathedral, the role of light in a Gothic cathedral, that the atmosphere, the impact it has, the way it transports you. It wasn't at all dissimilar to what Damien was talking about. This idea of the sacred. I thought, I bet Bendy will hear that and think, I know exactly what he means.
Yeah, I was really going for it. Two things. I loved it when he started talking about the sacred. And then I thought, oh my God, because he brought Catalan's gold toilet into it. He started calling that sacred. So I was suddenly kind of like shouting at the telly then. But he's decided, he's at that point in his career where he's kind of been up the hill, and I'm not saying he's coming down the hill, but he's surveying it from his comfortable summit. And I was slightly also not shocked, but surprised to hear that he made such a big play about art investigating the truth, which as you know, Wild, I think that is what art should really be about. And John Constable, one of my heroes, he said, of course, that truth in all things is only what will last in prosperity when it comes to art. So I thought, hooray for Damien. And then he said, but I'm not sure there is any truth anymore. So I hope in this next phase of his career, he gets off the gold toilets and goes back to searching for truth.
I thought it was all very interesting. By the way, the grotto is wonderful. I've been there, obviously, a few times. And hopefully it will be available. The Mark Getty, who owns this fantastic library full of the most mouth-wateringly desirable books you've ever seen, he does open the Wormsley Park up in the summer. He has an opera there that plays annually, but also cricket games. I don't know if you like cricket, but they're cricket games. And then might be the chance to see this fantastic grotto.
All right, cool. Well, let's keep our fingers crossed for that. I'd like to see it.
Yeah, and also the other good thing about him, he has not accepted a knighthood. He's never accepted a CBE. He's never accepted an MBE. He's never accepted becoming a member of the Royal Academy. He's just not clubbable, Bendy. And I thought that might throw you off him, because I know you're desperate to be ennobled in one of these New Year's honours lists. But for me, I like that. I like artists who don't want to be bought by the establishment and quietened by them. So I admire that.
I like as many art world establishment members to turn down their gongs, because it means there's more scraps left for the rest of us. So here's hoping.
Well, listen, one thing I can promise you on this podcast, I will go to the grave defending your right to be ennobled, and for the for the Grosvenor name once again to be given the honours that it deserves. As for me, I'll always remain just a plain old stupid Januszczak. And on that optimistic note, that's going to be a goodbye from me and from Damien Hirst in Las Vegas. Bye-bye.
And goodbye from me.
Waldy and Bendy.